Hi, good morning. Would like to start with the karakia. Anna, would you like to lead?
Whakataka hau ki te uru, whakataka hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi aka ana te atukura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora.
Great, thank you very much. Welcome everyone to today's meeting of the CCO Review and Appointments Subcommittee meeting. Please let myself or Elise know if you intend to leave the meeting. Morning tea will be about 11 o'clock. Please be advised that we intend to go into a public exclusion session for the last item on the agenda, and that is to protect the protect the privacy of natural persons in relation to the CCO board appointments. I was told that's a legal requirement, so I had to get that right. Thank you. Now, are there any apologies? No apologies? Thank you. We'll move on. Do I have a seconder? Oh, sorry. No, we don't. Yeah, sorry. Are there any conflict of interest declarations? No? None. The confirmation of minutes. The CCO Reviews and Appointment Committee approves the minutes of the meeting held on 17th of December 2025. These have been circulated and they've been taken as read and confirmed as an accurate record of that meeting. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Andrew. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, would you like to vote on that? 1 if you agree, and 2 if you don't. Thank you, and that's been passed unanimously. Items not on the agenda. There are no items not on the agenda. Public participation. We have with us this morning Felicity Wong, who will be speaking on behalf of the Historic Places Wellington in relation to Experience Wellington's report. Welcome, Felicity. You have 10 minutes, and that should include any time for questions. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. Historic Places Wellington, as you know, is a membership organisation. We have more than 100 members, and we take a deep interest in historic buildings in Wellington. This morning I wanted to talk about a couple of those buildings. Firstly, I wanted to talk about the old BNZ building. Now, there's a problem there. Experience Wellington is responsible for the Plymouth ship display at the old BNZ in the basement. Hundreds of cruise ship passengers visit that display.
I understood the public participation contributions had to relate to items on the agenda. I wonder if the participant could let us know which items on the agenda this relates to?
This relates to the agenda item of the Q2 report of Experience Wellington and the performance of that organisation which you're considering this morning.
Well, there's no reference in the report to the building that Ms. Wong has so far referred to.
There's no, you're correct, there's no reference, but one would have thought that the performance of a CCO, council-controlled organisation, was opposite to their Q2 report. Otherwise, how does the public make a comment about the organisation's performance, if not through this public participation? Anyway, I'm happy to move on. It was a very small point that I wanted to make, but let me just conclude by saying that there is a problem because Experience Wellington is not fixing the lights in the Plymouth ship display, and it's somewhat frustrating for the building managers who've been talking to Experience Wellington for more than 18 months now about getting the lights fixed. Anyway, the main issue that I would like to talk to you about is the Te Whakahaere Ngā Toanga Tuku Iho Wellington project, which is mentioned on page 32 of the report. So my comments are made in relation to that sentence. There's a big decision being made in piecemeal about one of the council's premier heritage buildings, and an integrated approach, a transparent approach is needed that takes account of public views. And this, of course, is about the museum remaining in the Bond store built in 1892 and listed as a Category 1 historic place. Earlier this week, the Mayor and others, and Historic Places Wellington, appeared before the Select Committee, the Transport Select Committee, to talk about the Building Earthquake-Prone Amendment legislation. And that legislation is very significant for heritage buildings in Wellington, including the Bond Store, the home of Wellington Museum. The building was earthquake strengthened already in 2015, and it was stickered in 2023. But the legislation will make changes about that status in three aspects. Firstly, the legislation will allow 15-year extensions for strengthening. Secondly, the threshold of requirements to strengthen is under debate in that Select Committee at the moment, and Historic Places Wellington advocated for two threshold changes that would affect the Bond Store. Firstly, we asked for 3-storey buildings to be exempt from full retrofit. And secondly, we asked for double jeopardy, if you like, to be taken into account for buildings that have already been strengthened once and not have to be required to be strengthened again. So I urge the Council to, within that project mentioned in one sentence on page 32, about the idea that the Wellington Museum would move to Takina because Takina's losing $1.4 million a month, and you're looking for some way of ameliorating that financial crisis. I would implore you to wait for the legislation to properly cost any strengthening proposals and to ask for an extension from 2034 for 15 years. 2034 is the current deadline for the Bond Store. And I would particularly like to commend the Mayor for his triennium priorities, which include transparency of decision-making and public input. This council has a history of emerging into projects without all the information, and we can list many of those. Make a good decision. The sentence on page 32, I think, is incorrect. It calls for the council to reconfirm a decision, and I'm not aware that any decision has in fact been made that can be reconfirmed. I understand that, of course, there will be funding decisions in the long-term plan that you'll be considering later. Make better decisions. Get better technical information. Don't just pull out of the hat the idea that the Bond Store is going to cost $90 million to re-strengthen. Thank you. That's my comments. I would just add there's no commercial reason for keeping information about strengthening the Bond Store secret. The museum is a CCO. You're the council. There's no commercial issue about the finances of the Wellington Museum that call for continued secrecy on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phyllis Lee. Before I ask for questions, I'd actually like to just comment on what you just said. I had a meeting this morning with officers to discuss that sentence, and there's been no approach to council to actually make a decision or to actually decide on that. So that was just anticipated. That was just a proposal that they were suggesting. So that nothing has actually come up to council for that. So there's been no decision made, and there's no opinion, and we don't have any costing on those at the moment. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Now, I'd like to open the floor to questions. Are there any questions? Councillor Randall.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, follow up on that last comment you had about information. Are you saying that information has been denied? You've asked for information about the seismic strengthening, and that's been denied to you?
I have. It's very murky to me as to who's responsible for that issue.
Or are you just saying that it actually hasn't come through as an open issue? Is that more your comment as opposed to?
Yeah, the sentence on page 32 says reconfirm your decision. What is the decision, and how can we be reconfirming decisions when no decision has been made? However, I am aware, of course, of political decisions. So political councillors have told me that they have made a decision. This is my point. The public needs confidence in your decisions as an administrative body, not political decisions behind the scenes, which we divine from chatting to councillors in corridors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? I see no more questions. Okay. Thank you very much, Felicity. I would now like to welcome representatives from the CCOs to present their Q2 reports. I ask that presenters keep to their allocated times and the councillors keep their questions brief. We have a lot of presentations to get through and we're aiming to finish this by 12:30. Thank you. So first of all, we have the Wellington Zoo Trust. I welcome Karen Fifield and Jamie Tuata. Thank you. Welcome, Karen.
Kia ora. I don't have Jamie Tuta today. I have Amy Hughes, who is our Director of, I always get this wrong, you say. It's a long, big portfolio.
Director of Communication, Experience and Community.
So Amy's my backup. So thank you very much for having us today. This is our Q2 report, but I will talk about some things to do with Q3 as well, because it might interest you in terms of some of the things that have been happening in the last little while. So looking at our strategic PO, the first one in Oranga, these are some critical things that happened over Q2. Amy's on the Regional Zoo and Aquarium Association board, so we hosted the board at Tunukuau in November last year, which was very nice to have them all here. They're from the region. Our marketing campaign at Christmas was very successful. And a really interesting one for you is the Renewals Construction Framework Contract. What we've done with our renewals program is we have gone out to tender and we've asked people to submit about how they would actually manage our renewals program over the 12 months. So we went through quite a big process in terms of looking at which companies might actually be able to do that. And the reason we did it is because it stops us having to always tender for small projects and always having to do these things. If we get one company that can do it all, then that gives us a lot more flow, if you like, in terms of the projects, and we can get things done in a more timely manner. So Homes Construction was successful in getting that tender, so they'll work with our people now to look at our renewals budget. So this is different to upgrades, it's just a renewals program. So visitor satisfaction, we're really pleased with this, of course, that most people rate their experience at Tunukuau at 93%, which we're very happy with. And obviously students are a big part of what we do in terms of Tunukuau. I mean, Councillor Foon made a point at our last board meeting that tamariki are very important as visitors to Tunukuau, so we thought we would talk about our student visits well and above what we plan to get, so we're really happy with that as well. Our educators work very hard. And then adverse climate conditions. Well, for the first time in the last 18 months, we've had to close the zoo due to weather. We've had to close it 3 times because of wind. Never in its 120-year history have we had to do that. So that has been quite a big issue for us in terms of climate. And then looking at some of our visitor numbers, this is looking at over the last couple of years. You can see in 23-24 we had a stellar year, and that was the year of the snow leopards. And then 24-25 it was a bit lower again, and that tends to happen when you've had a big year in terms of capital projects. The next year is not quite so high. In December we were tracking pretty well against budget and against the quarter budget and against the yearly target. January killed us. It was just such a terrible month, and so we've dropped further back now in terms of our visitor numbers, which is really difficult for us because it reduces our revenue in terms of admissions. February's is a bit better, so we're hoping that maybe March might get us through. And then looking at the, compared to what the council gives us versus what we actually contribute to the cost of the zoo, and looking at when the visitors come in, what do we actually provide and what does council provide? This is looking at those numbers. So looking at the council grant versus our trading revenue. And you can see that both the council contribution and our contribution have both gone up. And that's because with less visitors, you end up having to pay more in terms of per visitor numbers. One of the things I really wanted to highlight to you today, and we've talked about this a little bit in our reports and also in the statement of intent, is looking at utilities costs. So aside from the admissions work that we're trying to do and build up, some of the electricity and water numbers is just, and you can see by this graph, it's gone crazy. So over a 4-year period, power has gone up by 104%. Our usage has gone up in that time by 17%. And for water, the cost has gone up by 151% and our usage has gone up by 46%. So what we're seeing is just this enormous cost around utilities. And even though we're controlling the usage, it's the cost that's killing us in terms of those utilities numbers. Then looking at our next strategic PO, Hinanaro, one of the things we're really excited about is the speckled skinks. So DOC have been doing some work with speckled skinks. They couldn't find them in their habitat, and then they found 3. So what they said was, we'll uplift the speckled skinks and we'll put them to Wellington Zoo. So the 3 of them came to us, and then we just nearly doubled the population because they had babies. So there were two babies born. So we've now got 5. DOC is still going, I know, it's exciting. And DOC are now going back to the habitat area and having a look if they can find some more. So if they find any more, they'll bring them to Dunukau. So that's quite exciting for us. Our field conservation projects and support is really important for our conservation partners to have this support, because like everybody around the world, they're actually struggling with their funding and with trying to get people to actually support them. And I want to talk about our injured wildlife released to the wild, but I'll come back to that a bit later in the presentation. So 63% of the animals treated at Te Kohanga went back to the wild, and our target was 50%. So the vets work extremely hard on that, or the vet team actually, because the vet techs are part of that. With Tinana, our next PO, Vic Uni have been working with us looking at AI videoing in terms of monitoring our Whittaker's skinks. So the Whittaker's skinks came into us, so there's about 56 of those left of the ones that are in this part of New Zealand. There's some in Northland, but these are the ones that came from Pukerua Bay. So there's about 56 of them. Some of them are at Ngā and we've got the rest. And it's been very interesting working with people with the Whittaker's skinks, because nobody knows anything about how they actually behave. So people who were holding them before did not have the technology we've got available to us, like cameras on each of the animals. So we've actually got footage now of the animals breeding. That's never been seen before, ever. So the way we've been able to set up to putting an ET for the Whittaker's skinks is really quite revolutionary. So Vic Uni's been doing this AI video monitoring work with us, so they presented that at their research showcase, it's really exciting stuff, especially watching the breeding. They're not very nice to each other, I might say, but you know, it's interesting. We've got, in terms of our target for vulnerable, endangered and critically endangered species, our target's 25. We have 33 species, and it's been 16 years since we opened Te Kohanga the Nest, and I think in that 16 years, it's really been a game changer for us and for the animals that they treat. And of course, we said farewell to some of our long-term residents, which is always heartbreaking for us. But, you know, people have their favourites at the zoo. Some of our staff really love Felipe the rooster. So, you know, everyone has their own animals that they really respect and love. With our next PO, we've actually got the New Zealand IUCN Committee. So the IUCN is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. So our conservation manager is on that committee. So they are actually now the deputy chair of that committee for the IUCN. I now move from being president of the world of zoos and aquariums Yeah, I know, it's an old joke. To immediate past president. So I'm still on the council for another 2 years, but I'm on the council with a voice but no vote, and they all know that I will use my voice. So I mightn't be able to vote, but I can certainly use my voice. And then with our local conservation grants, what we do with these is we provide a lot of seed funding, or not a lot of funding for these projects, but it's something that they can use to actually build their conservation work in our local area. So it's really important that we support some of these organisations. We support 7 regional organisations this year to $16,000, and that money gives them so much resource, if you like, to be able to continue the work they're doing in the community. And our next our community. So we're working with a digital marketing specialist to have a look at what we do with our social media. And our marketing and comms manager gave a presentation to our board at our last meeting in terms of looking at our social media strategy. And that's a really good process for us to go through. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
We started working with an agency and really split our advertising on social media and our communications. And the communication strategy is now has got real clarity around it in terms of what we're posting, when we post, and we've found a lot of younger people are really responding to it well. And in November, we launched our TikTok channel and got 3,000 followers pretty quickly, so we're very happy with that. And with the digital marketing specialist we're working with in our Christmas campaign, we've seen a return on ad spend of 553%, so we're really happy with how that's going. Making our small budgets work very hard.
Thanks, Amy. And it was really exciting to do the tour for the deaf and hard of hearing people. We've never done this before. In fact, the people who set it up checked if any others in the country had done it. They didn't. I thought Auckland may have done it, but they haven't. So that's quite nice to be the first to do something like that. There was one kid who came, he was amazing, and he did this amazing social media post about all he'd learnt about the giraffes and all the rest of it. He was so excited about being there. It was wonderful. And then Close Encounters, we've tried with the Close Encounters to really increase the number of those, because that's really a good revenue stream for us, because it's straight to the bottom line in terms of investment, so we can get a lot more revenue from Close Encounters. The team have been working very hard to increase that, so we're quite happy with how that's going. Wild Explorer is meeting its targeted budget of about 6 to 7% of visitors, so we're happy with that. We've just changed out one, I think it's only one of the two of the videos this time. We kept the one on dinosaurs, very popular. And we received about $70,000 in community funding over the quarter, separate to what I'm going to talk about next. And we had our education outside the classroom contract renewed for up to 2026. Oh, I want to go to this one first. No, actually, I better do the challenges first. I'll end on a high rather than the downers. So, obviously, extreme weather events we know it's to do with climate change. It does impact on us a lot, especially if we have to close the zoo. And we're actually getting more wildlife at Te Kohanga than Nest, so obviously that's an issue as well. And the big thing that's happening now that we're seeing is food shortages and price increases, because as agriculture gets wiped out, it impacts on what we can buy. We've been through this before in terms of things like hay, lucerne, whatever. So it's about actually adjusting that. I mean, we're very, very frugal with our food budgets, but obviously the animals have to have good quality food and enough food. So that might be something that comes through in our next little while with our revenue and our expenses. And I've talked about rising utilities costs. Now let's talk about the good things. So as you might have noticed, we had a community support campaign that we ran after the terrible storm that came through the other week. And it was quite incredible. We raised nearly $70,000. I think it was in like 5 days, which we've done community campaigns before that have never, ever been that successful. And so it was obviously about the immediacy. It was about, something that people could see was happening and they felt strongly about. So that was incredible to get $70,000 for these birds. So I've got some stats for you. We had 4 albatross come in, 1 erect crested penguin. How on earth that got to Wellington is beyond us. Several shearwaters, petrels, prions, gulls, shags and gannets. So 6 are still in hospital. Unfortunately, 18 have died or been euthanased, and 6 have been released. So it's always a bit heartbreaking, and they do get a lot of compassion fatigue, I think, some of our vets and our vet techs when they're looking after these animals and they don't quite make it. But this is one of the Royal Albatross that we did release. He was a feisty little fella, big fella, and it was really good to have Te Kohanga because we could put them on salt water in the pool and be able to get them out there quickly. So that was really good as well. And that's us.
Great. Thank you very much. Now, do we have any questions for? Right, a question from Councillor Osborne.
Thanks for the presentation and all you guys do. I want to go back to the graph that had the costs of utilities that you put up, which, to be honest, was frightening.
Yeah. It's frightening to us too.
Have you done any sort of business case planning around improving the amount of energy you're generating from renewable sources, or looking at using water more efficiently, grey water systems, stormwater capture, that sort of thing?
We have a lot. Obviously, sustainability is really important to us, and we do have, Amy will talk a little bit more in depth about that, but we have 23 water tanks, for example, in the zoo. We do a lot of that sustainability work. We're the first carbon zero certified zoo in the world, so we do look at that all the time, but you might want to talk about it a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, we have a solar array on our front visitor entry building, but that only generates about 1 to 2% of our power. And what we face is, as we work through upgrading and building new animal habitats, often there is new heating going in, so we're actually constantly thinking about the animals. We've got a project to make the giraffe house more weather tight so it can be warmer, but that also includes increasing lighting, heating. So it's generally, we're doing things as efficiently as possible, but as we're working through the projects, sometimes we're adding stuff in. And for example, the native reptiles that we're looking after, so the Whitaker skinks and the lowland speckled skinks, they need heating and cooling 24 hours. So there's always stuff that's coming in that is adding to that, to the load. So we're always trying to operate as sustainably as possible, but just having to look after 500 animals and 230,000 visitors means that sometimes the load is increasing. But we have, as Karen said, we have got 23 grey water tanks. So if there's been a lot of rain, that's really helpful for our cleaning. But we're just constantly trying to figure it out. But the water, we have water meters, so we can identify leaks as soon as they happen. We're putting all of those things in place because we have to give animals water, so we can't reduce our water use that much more.
I just had one other question around the conservation work you're doing, which, again, thank you. Do you partner with DOC and that sort of stuff?
Yep, go.
Yeah. Yes, so that's a very good question.
It's a really good question.
Because traditionally we have just gone, we'll look after the animals, but when the Whitakers,
the Whitakers,
we actually said you're going to need to give us some money to help look after those animals, because we can't just keep adding animals in, looking after them, paying for them if it's a DOC program. So there is some funding coming from DOC, but doesn't completely cover the cost of the program, but it is offsetting some of our costs.
And we did get some funding from a donor for the Whitakers as well. So, but it got to the point with DOC, and they were fine. Like, as soon as we put the proposal to them, we looked at a 5-year proposal, and they were quite happy with paying what they needed to pay. So it was time to ask.
Great. Are there any more questions? No? Oh, sorry, Councillor Poon, sorry.
Personal question, morning. Did the penguin make it?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, the penguin's fine.
Yeah.
Penguin's looking
so beautiful.
Penguin's looking very, very healthy at the moment, and it's a screaming, crazy thing. But it's lovely.
Thank you.
Right. Councillor Compton?
Good morning. When do you finish up with us, Karen?
Oh, June 12th.
So
Yes.
will we see you one more time?
I think you will.
Okay.
Yes, I think you will.
Good.
Thanks, Andrea.
Great.
Oh, yeah, 23rd of April. It's also the zoo's 120th birthday. That's why we decided to combine the two.
Invitations will be coming tomorrow.
They're in the mail.
Great, thank you. I have a question I'd like to ask you about the close encounters.
Yep.
Do you find that you get more interest in animals that are rare or endangered, or is there any particular animal that that people really like to come and see to have a close encounter?
You go on.
Thanks for the question, Ray. The most popular close encounter is with the red pandas, and that is booked at 98% capacity. And that is because they are cute. They are endangered and they have a great conservation story, and we support conservation in Nepal, but also they are cute. So I think it's actually more, people tend to have strong feelings about animals, and that is what drives them to the encounters. So snow leopards, our tigers are also obviously highly endangered. People enjoy those encounters, but also they love the encounters with the otters as well. So I think it's more about personal choice, but every animal we have, there's a strong conservation message in those encounters because some of them are vulnerable or critically endangered.
Great, thank you. I seem to remember some years ago you used to take an animal into the city on a lead, of course, and that raised a lot of interest in what the zoo was doing. Is it proposed that we actually look at that again?
No. In short, we only took the cheetah out of the zoo twice. Once to a school and once to a book launch, and that was before my time, so that's 20 odd years ago. And there's no way we would do that. There are regulations around animal visitor interactions that we have standards all around the world that doesn't meet the standards to put a cheetah on a leash. No way.
Great, thank you very much. We're running out of time, but I'd just like to say a very, very big thank you to Karen for all the years of service that you've actually provided, and we really will miss you very much. So thank you again very much.
I might see you next time,
Right.
the next meeting. Thank you.
Right, I'd now like to welcome the Wellington Regional Stadium Trust up to speak, Warwick Dent and Owen Gibson. Thank you.
That better? Excellent, even more concerned. Sorry, we don't have any cute little skinks or penguins. We've got lots of other really cute things. Kia ora and good morning. My name's Owen Gibson. I'm pretty proud to be sitting here as the new incoming chair of Wellington Regional Stadium Trust, which is, of course, the brand newly minted Henry Stadium. So we're pretty happy with that. And I would just like to immediately scare Warwick by going off script and publicly just congratulating our team, and particularly Warwick, who's sitting here, of actually getting Henry on board as a sponsor. Sponsor dollars for large stadiums is not an easy process, but it's a pretty important part of making the stadium sustainable as we go forward. And Warwick and the team spent a huge amount of time and effort working that through over the last 6 to 12 months. So congratulations to Warwick and the whole team at the stadium. During the 6 months, we hosted 20 event days with 169,000 patrons attending various events. And this compares to 19 event days and 136,000 for the 6 months to December 24. As many of you know, I'm an accountant, so I'm pretty happy to say there's an operating surplus of $2.5 million before depreciation. Also, just did want to start off indicating there's been a few changes to the trust board over the time. Most notably, obviously, I'm sitting here and not Rachel Talale. Rachel, who's been a great servant of the stadium, has done over 9 years on the board, has stepped down from chair, but we'll see out her term to June this year. And she should be acknowledged for the huge contribution she's made to the stadium. Equally, we've welcomed Councillor O'Brien to the Trust Board on behalf of the stadium, who I think has come along behind us, which is great. And Councillor Calvert, who's obviously still on the council, has moved on to other things. And we've retained Penny Gaylor, who's a councillor with the Regional Trust, who's continued. We've had Peter Miskimmon join the Trust Board, who many of you know is an ex-New Zealand hockey player, but is heavily involved in major events and sports in particular. He's making a great contribution. We farewelled Philippa Harford due to other commitments, having served just over a term, and we're just close to finalising the appointment of a new head of our Finance and Risk Committee, Rhonda Richardson, who's just going through the process with yourselves and the Regional Council. And we have indicated, obviously, with Rachel stepping down in June and another trustee coming to the end of their term in December, we will work with Anna and Jamie sitting behind me and your team to bring forward some candidates for what's an exciting period for the stadium. Warwick.
Morena, that's a good slide because on my slide I can see it. So the colour has not come through. As Owen noted, we had a positive first 6 months of the year. Our net surplus of 6.5 million was compared with a budget of 5.3. That positive variance was due to both some additional revenue. We had a good events period in the first 6 months, but also some operating expenditure, which will actually be spent in the 6 months that we're currently in. Operating surplus of 2.5 million before depreciation, and after depreciation that was 578,000. We had net operating cash inflow of 8.9 million, and that was compared with 3.6 in the 6 months of December 24. A part of that inflow increase was the $5.9 million in funding that we'd received from the Wellington City Council and the Greater Wellington Regional Council towards our seismic resilience project, which I'll talk about later. Our capital expenditure during the period was 5 million, and that was compared with a budget of 9.8. Most of that was around the timing of a couple of big projects, one being the seismic resilience project, where the cash flows of that have changed due to a contractual change, but also the rebranding of the stadium, because I didn't quite get it done by the end of Q2. That's a cost that will be incurred in the current quarter. Can't get it to move forward. That's right. Oh, there we go. Oh, no. Oh. We'll go back a bit. As I noted, the first 6 months of the year was really a good period for us in terms of events, really heavy event period, but also for us big, large-scale events. So we started the year with Wrexham FC. Obviously, the Wrexham Down Under tour created a lot of publicity. Also, in terms of the crowd, a great crowd for a pre-season match. It turned out a very memorable event, especially for the young Phoenix team, who actually went on to win that match, although I'm not sure too many people remember the result. We hosted the Black Ferns and the All Blacks in July. Black Ferns taking on Australia, the All Blacks taking on France. I think one thing to note there was by the end of the Black Ferns match, there was 24,000 people in the stadium, so the support for the women's test match was excellent. It also meant for a great day for us in terms of that visitor experience with people enjoying both matches. And then the South Africa All Blacks test, whilst the All Blacks won't remember it too fondly, it was a great event for us. We welcomed our 12 millionth patron to the stadium. And I'd just like to acknowledge New Zealand Rugby, who actually gave us some All Blacks to be out there on the concourse, welcoming fans, doing bag searches, but also welcoming that 12 millionth fan, which was a great experience for them. In September, we hosted the Hot Wheels Monster Truck, a different sort of event for us, kind of event that gives our turf manager nightmares, but a good demonstration of the versatility of the stadium and our ability to host events for different audiences. We had 24,000 people through the stadium on that day, and about a third of them came from outside of the region. A lot of families, a lot of first-time visitors to the stadium, and for us, a good way to show that we give to different parts of the community, not just our sporting community. It was a busy period for exhibitions. We had Bevana, the food show, the home show, all really well patronised this year. And a couple of community events. I think I just want to notice Christmas at the Stadium. It's the second time we've done that event in association with Go Media, where we invite through various charities parts of our community that wouldn't normally get to enjoy a Christmas experience and have them in here. This year we had the event the same day as the Phoenix match, so those families will also be able to stay and watch the Phoenix match after, which is great. And our East Waste Recycling Day, which we did in association with the Wellington City Council, really successful. Not sure if collecting waste is successful, but I think we had about 24,000 kilograms of e-waste that we collected on a day that the Wellington City Council will then recycle. I will talk about the Seismic Resilience Project. It is a big project for us. It's a total budget of $18 million. We've made really steady progress in the 6-month period, and that's continued into this quarter. I do want to just reiterate for those who are new around the table, it is a resilience project rather than a strengthening project. The stadium isn't earthquake prone. Under IL3, it's about 70 to 80% of code, but it is constructed of double T concrete joints everywhere. So the project is a combination of installing around 5,000 brackets under those joints, but also around the 4th floor having a FRP, which is fiberglass reinforcement around that layer, which just holds the building together a little bit more. Some of that movement that we get in earthquake events just keeps it a little bit tighter. It is designed so that the stadium is much more resilient, and if there is a large earthquake, and that any damage that is incurred is minimised as much as possible, which would allow us to get back up to speed, hopefully sooner rather than later. Really pleased that the project is on budget, and it's actually scheduled to be completed in August of this year. That's probably about 6 months ahead of where we thought it was going to be. A part of that is that we've worked really closely with our main contractor, Naylor Love, and our engineer to just rescope the project a little bit, which has actually meant we've actually sped up the program, which is actually really helpful for us. As you appreciate, we're running the project without impacting events, which is challenging. But again, the main contractor has been fabulous in terms of making sure that happens. You'll note there that the funding that we've received from both Wellington City Council and Greater Wellington Regional Council, that is a combination of the two councils, and it's not each, just to let you know. That is spread over 3 years of the long-term plan. What we will do in the next 6 months is we will borrow to complete the project, and then use the funding that we receive from both councils to be able to pay down that debt, but also towards other projects. As Owen noted, in the period we did sign Henry as our naming rights partner. We actually signed it at 3 o'clock on Christmas Eve, which was both joyous and a relief, and made my Christmas holiday a lot better. Obviously, we're really excited to be partnering with Henry for a number of reasons. We see them as a really good brand fit for us in terms of what we're trying to achieve in the stadium around customer experience. They are very engaged. They want to leverage the sponsorship, which is, as a rights holder, is music to our ears, and we see it as a really exciting thing. There's been a lot of talk about their investment into the city, which is great, but I also think on the other side, it reflects the value of the stadium and what we can offer them in terms of brand exposure across New Zealand, but also into the Australian market, which they are growing their business in. And certainly in terms of A-League, Super Rugby, international cricket, international rugby, international football, that broadcast exposure for Henry into those markets, but also beyond into UK, where they're also launching their business, is really valuable. So in some ways, the perfect partnership. And someone did joke the other day that the work starts now in terms of how we bring that to life. But it's great to say that both the whole team at Henry is very excited and very committed to working with ourselves and also our event partners to make it a great success. We officially became Henry Stadium on Sunday. And I would say we're probably about 80% through our rebrand. If anyone does visit the stadium on the 14th and you see a Sky sign, please take a photo and send it to me. We think we've got rid of most of them. We do have a number of capital projects, both over the next 6 months, but also further into the next financial year. Our public address system, our PA system, is due for renewal. We've gone through a procurement process for that, and that project will start over the next 6 months. Our chiller, who provides cooling for our corporate areas, has reached end of life and has been replaced. Again, that will happen in the next 6 months. Beyond that, into the next financial year, our building management system is due for renewal. And also noted, we will complete the seismic resilience project. The other thing after the seismic resilience project is, which is a big project for us, is the internal concourse resurfacing. It is well overdue for resurfacing, both in terms of its appearance, but also as a trip hazard. So that's a project that we will start in the next financial year. Just picking up on Karen's comments around utilities, we are really mindful of our power, not only our power usage, but our power costs. They are going up a lot, and we require power both from day-to-day business, but also in terms of our sports lights in particular. They have been transferred to LED, and we've done the rest of our lights to LED, which is helping in terms of our usage. What we are doing at the moment is we're working with the Greater Wellington Regional Council, looking at the viability to put solar power on our roof, solar panels on our roof. All going well, we would see that as a project that we will start in the next financial year as well. We do have a large surface on our roof. It seems that it is viable, initial indication that it is viable to put it up there. And we're working with the Regional Council about how we would do that in terms of ownership, management, and flows of who would fund the project. It's always funny talking about the last 6 months when we're halfway through the next quarter, but I guess for us, Q3, Q4 activity, Ed Sheeran was a great start to our calendar year. 38,000 people, over a third of those coming from outside a region. So for us, large-scale events like that, like Wrexham, like the All Black Test, are not only really important for us, but we're mindful they're really important to the city and the region. Overall, if we fill the stadium, on average, somewhere between a third to 40-45% of the attendees will be from outside the region. They're obviously visitors. They're spending money in our cafes, our bars, our restaurants, and our hotels. So anything we can do to fill the stadium is not only good for us in terms of revenue, but it's also great for the city and the region. And we're really mindful of that when we're working with promoters to try and bring events to the city. The rest of the events calendar is looking good for us. We've got our T20 double header coming up at the end of this month. We're in the middle of the hurricane season. Big one for us is the New Zealand Warriors on Anzac Day. That's selling really, really well. We expect that we will host the largest ever Warriors home match, hopeful of a sellout. Really strong pickup in corporate hospitality. So all our casual boxes have been sold, and our hospitality packages are almost sold out as well. And then further into the start of the next financial year, we'll be hosting the All Blacks against Italy on the 11th of July. We're working really closely with promoters to bring other events, and I guess looking at next summer, both in terms of sports. We're looking at an action sport event similar to Monster Trucks, but slightly different, but in the motorsport sort of field, and obviously music. For us, big music events, we know that people like them. Not only do they bring people to the city, but really give a good buzz and a social impact for local Wellingtonians as well. And we're working with promoters on a couple of opportunities for next summer. With our new naming rights partner, the business events and functions part of our business, which is actually managed by our caterer, is also having a relaunch of their brand and having, I guess, going back to market with a new offering in terms of what we can do in that space. We do have lots of room, and we've been successful in the past in terms of attracting business events. And it's just a matter of finding that niche for us about who uses it. Just last week, we hosted the Women's Leadership Conference, which was a great event. So we do that in the background as well. And we continue to be open for community events. We are again hosting the Cancer Society's Relay for Life this year, and we'll be hosting the Eid celebrations at the Emma Ramadan next month. That is all we have, but happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Councillor Osborne.
Thanks for the presentation and all the great work you do. Hopefully you can improve the All Blacks performance at the stadium. Maybe the change of name will bring a change of luck. I'm really pleased to hear that you're looking into solar panels. That's great. I'm just wondering about water. Do you capture the rainwater? I imagine a stadium uses an awful lot of water to keep that grass nice and green.
We don't currently, but it is in our strategic plan to look at both energy generation and water capture. So it'll be the next thing that we do look at. We aren't blessed with space outside of the the venue, but we're definitely going to look at ways that we can capture water and use that, in particular, as you note, to water the field, which is where most of our water usage comes from.
Well, all right.
Great, thank you. Councillor Ariabai.
Thank you, Chair. It's not so much a question, it's more a comment. I was at attendance on the Women in Leadership conference, and I just want to thank you for all your work. The catering was amazing. We all thoroughly enjoyed it.
Great. I'll pass that on to O'Brien, so caterer.
Great, thank you. Councillor Tiffin-Parker.
Yeah, the Hurricanes have had a change of ownership, obviously, recently. Do we see any risk to that participation?
We're working really closely with the new ownership, who is very hands-on with the management of the Hurricanes, about how we can work better together in terms of good outcomes for both the Hurricanes and ourselves. We have previously, the Hurricanes, we didn't hold a contractual relationship with because it was done through Wellington Rugby because of the long-term rugby agreement that we have and that's been in place since the stadium was built. But we are working really closely. I think in terms of this year, they have sold a home match to the Super Round in Christchurch and they're taking one to Napier. We're really supportive of them taking a match or two to the regions each year. If we could host 5, preferably 6 events here, we think that's a good balance. We think that there are ways that we can work better with them in terms of simplifying our commercial relationship. I think what we're doing at the moment, it's kind of working as we go, but in terms of risk, no, as long as their audiences don't significantly drop, we believe that we are best placed to service what the Hurricanes want to do. They certainly are looking to make their crowds bigger, and if their crowds are going to be bigger, then they're certainly going to be at the stadium.
Great. Mayor Little, thank you.
Thank you. Just in response to Councillor Osborne's comment, it is the Henry Stadium, not the Graham Henry Stadium, so limitations on what improvements it'll make to the All Blacks. Thanks very much, too, for their presentation. Just a couple of things arising out of the written report that we received just about attendance numbers. One was in relation to the Phoenix. There's 6 Phoenix games, an attendance of 29,321. Not clear whether that's the total attendance over that 6 games. And related to that is a question about what concern there might be given the kind of current performance and attendance numbers. And then the other question was on the same chart we've got here. There's reference to an event, Wellington on a Plate Stadium on a good night, and a 300 attendance. And just wondering what that is, given the cost it must take to open the stadium, even for a small event. Just seek some explanation about that.
I'll start with the Wellington on a Plate event. So we partnered with Wellington on event for the first time, Wellington on a Plate for the first time, and we hosted a dinner on a marquee in the ground. We broke even. So for us, it was actually quite successful, but also highlighted other uses of the stadium for us to be able to host functions or corporate events on the turf. Really, for the attendees, they came through the tunnel, there was the lights, the music, and then a dinner with an organisation actually from Christchurch who do specialise in outdoor barbecuing. So it was actually successful, despite only 300 people coming. In terms of the Phoenix, no, I think the Phoenix figures, crowd figures this year probably reflect figures across the A-League. It is a league that is finding challenges in terms of driving attendance. The Auckland derbies and the one we just had still drive a better attendance, but yeah, the attendances for average match is sitting around 3,500, 4,000, which is a concern, not only for us but obviously for the Phoenix. And we're actually due to sit down with the Phoenix in the next couple of weeks and have a look at what the next season looks like. The A-League's starting to put their draw together and how we might be able to work with the Phoenix. They play a lot of games with us. They play 11 or 12 games with us each year. Is that too many? We're not quite sure, but that's something that we'll discuss with the Phoenix in the coming weeks.
Could I maybe just very briefly add to throwing back to the Wellington on Plate event, Mayor, is also, I guess, one of the things about the seismic resilience work is that's coming to an end. So we're both, as a board, and it's part of your letter of intent to us, is throwing forward our strategy, and we'll be shortly holding another strategy session with the current and oncoming trustees about how we throw forward. And one of our ongoing work-ons, which we're continuing to work on, and I have to say collaboratively with our new catering partner, O'Brien Group, is how can we best use the stadium to bring more people to the stadium and use the asset in different ways to sweat the asset? How do we build opportunities to bring people in? That was a good opportunity to say, here's a different sort of event. It was in a space on the stadium, but could it be in one of the lounges we've got? Could it be in a box? And how can we continue to innovate? And they're along for the ride, but Warwick and the team are very focused. How can we try it as a relatively low cost, low weight way to try something different? And we'll continue to try and innovate that as part of our throw forward of strategy for the next 5 to 10.
Thank you. Councillor Compton.
Good morning. Apologies, I'm a newbie. I just, on the first page of your report, you state the Trust is no longer able to meet the financial autonomy objective, in particular in regards to capital investment to maintain and renew the stadium. Just wondering, is that standard, or what strategies are you invoking to achieve financial autonomy?
That's something that's been signalled for the last 3 to 4 years, and a part of that is through the last long-term planning process. We did work with the councils to have the funding for the seismic resilience project. It's in our letter of expectation that we will continue to work with both the settlers of the Trust, both the Greater Wellington Regional Council and the Wellington City Council, on how we plan for future capital works. We are doing everything we can to drive revenue and save costs. The reality is, in the current market, it is challenging for us to generate enough surplus and maintain a 25-year-old rather large asset.
Thank you very much. We're out of time, but I'd just like to ask one quick question. Can you explain to me what the distinction is between resilience and strengthening? Is that just semantics, or is that actually a technical difference?
Earthquake strengthening would be to strengthen a building to increase its MBS rating. So if you were 30% and you wanted to get to 40%, that would be strengthening. Resilience doesn't necessarily increase the MBS. We don't see that there might be a small increase in our MBS rating from this work. It's more around protecting the assets and our patrons. So again, the catch brackets, if we did have a significant event, and it does have to be a significant event, it is actually a reasonably strong building. But if it was a significant event, those brackets are designed to catch any falling brackets, both in terms of people being able to leave the building safely, but also that means that any repair jobs would be a lot easier, so it's more resilient to those events.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. You're right.
I'd now like to invite the Wellington Regional Economic Development Agency up to speak, Mark Oldenshaw and Tracy Bridges. Thank you. Welcome.
Tēnā koutou, ngā mihi nui o te rā. Lovely to be here. Nice to see you all today. For those who haven't met me yet, I think I've met most of you. I'm Tracy Bridges. I'm the chair of the Wellington Regional Economic Development Agency and also our subsidiary CHQ. And this is Mark Oldenshaw, our chief executive. And I just also want to acknowledge today one of the other members of our board who's at this table, Councillor Tiefenbacher, who joined our board this year. Good to have you here. We presented last week to the new Economic Development Committee, and at that it struck me that it might be helpful, particularly for new councillors. With Wellington NZ and regional economic development is such a broad brief and kind of hard to get your hands on, and unlike our other CCOs where you can sort of walk in and see it, like the zoo in Zealandia, it's harder to walk in and see us. I'm hoping this quarterly report, like our opportunity last week, helps you kind of get a handle on what we do. But if you've been to a festival event this week, we're involved with that. If you went to the Maioli concert down at Waitangi Park or saw all the people in the streets, we're involved with that. If you saw that we've received significant funding from central government to boost our efforts for tourism and events here in Wellington, our team's involved with that. If you got a good deal out of the Advent calendar, that was the Wellington City Advent calendar before Christmas, our team initiates that. There's so much we're involved with in the city that you've probably seen or touched without necessarily knowing that's your economic development agency at work. I'm going to hand now to Mark to take you through our Q2 report and all of the awesome results there. Thanks, Mark.
Morning. Committee Chair, and thank you, Tracy, for the opportunity. Thanks for the opportunity to present the Q2 report. An opportunity, I guess, to reflect on the mahi that we've done across Q2 and probably across Q3 as well at the beginning of this year, but also. I think it's a good time to just look forward in terms of some of the things that we've currently got in front of us. I've spent quite a bit of time, as we do, meeting with business leaders, industry leaders over the last couple of months. I think it's probably fair to say that a lot of them have got an increased sense of optimism around the city and an increased sense of vibrancy as well around the city. One industry leader the other day referred to his state of mind as fragile optimism, and I thought actually that's not a bad reflection, I think, of where we are in terms of our ongoing investment in the city, but also in terms of, frankly, how the city and the region is coming together and showing leadership in a lot of areas. And look, from my perspective and from Wellington NZ's perspective, I'd like to thank the council for taking more of a public role in business development and ensuring that certainty is there and that certainty remains for future investors, because I think certainty is something from an investment perspective in particular I think a lot of people are looking for at the moment. Look, in terms of our Q2 results, we feel very comfortable in terms of where we're currently sitting. We think we've had a strong Q2 quarter, and we're certainly all on track in terms of our KPIs, as you see there. Some timing differences always happen each year, but based on our historical trends, we're certainly on track to achieve all of our KPIs as set by the council this year, which is really encouraging. And from my perspective, I'd like to publicly acknowledge the kaimahi at Wellington NZ and Creative HQ for the work that they continue to do, ensuring that Wellington and the wider region is a great place to live, work, invest and play as well. Look, in terms of some of the activity that we've done over the Q2, Q3 period, beginning of this year, I had a catch up yesterday with the general managers of the hotels in the city, and I always find them quite a good barometer in terms of getting a sense of what business is like. Really pleased to say that they have seen the best start to a calendar year this year than they've seen for a very, very long time, certainly since COVID. And that's really encouraging. I think that's a reflection of the events that we've seen at the beginning of this year. Warwick Owen touched on a few of those as well. Particular standouts for the hoteliers was the Nick Cave weekend. A beautiful weekend, and it actually really showed the value of having an event that was exclusive to Wellington. Over 60% of attendees at the Nick Cave concerts came from out of town, and that's a fantastic opportunity, and really shows, I think, where Wellington can be placed in terms of some of those almost sort of slightly niche concerts as well. The hoteliers are also seeing quite a significant uplift in international tourism, particularly out of the US. US dollar is reasonably strong at the moment, and that's encouraging some quite reasonable spend from US travellers as well. But certainly Australia and China have both been up over this period as well, and we're starting to see government come back as well from a business events perspective in terms of the work we're doing out of Tākina. We're starting to see government travel a wee bit more, and that and then the on flow in terms of our conference and business events is a noticeable pickup as well. Towards the end of last year, of course, we had a great celebration in Wellington with the release of Avatar: Fire and Ash. a fantastic collaboration with Council, and again, thank you, Council, for all the work that you've done on really ensuring that weekend was not only a sunny, bright weekend for Wellington, but it was also a great celebration as well. We did a lot of work around that event, and particularly in the FMILS space. We had 5 international FMILS that we based around that event from the film sector and the gaming sector as well, Creative Tech. We held our first Creative Tech Summit at Massey University with world leaders in creative tech. And again, that's something that we're going to look at doing again this year. That went down really well with the industry, with a reminder that 35% of the gaming sector is based in Wellington. So again, a really good catchment for us to ensure that we keep on considering, and for events like that, it's really important that we can leverage the magnet that something like Avatar Fire and Ash provided to the region. A couple of other acknowledgements. We've talked a lot about the work that we've done in the boost area through tourism and hospitality. Just again, I think it's worth mentioning in the last boost announcement that Minister Upston made for events, Wellington got 4 events funded. That was the most that any city in New Zealand got. So again, I think a really good work from the wider team in ensuring, and most of that's based around marketing. So the ability to attract particularly Australians over to some of our significant events, WOW, Beervana, Visa, Wellington on a Plate, and the Lomas Festival, really key events for Wellington. So I think Wellington did really well out of that. CHQ recently held their Capital event. I know a number of you attended that, but again, a really good opportunity to link startups with angel investors as well, and ensure that the next Henrys of the world, the next Sharesies of the world continue to bubble along. Towards the end of last year in Q2, along with Centreport, Wellington NZ launched the Wellington Cruise Strategy. Again, a really good opportunity to ensure that Wellington remains a popular destination and we're attracting the right tourists. We're increasingly focused on a larger number of smaller ships, and smaller ships tend to bring more high net worth individuals that spend and really want a genuine experience. So part of that strategy will be working closer with our CCO colleagues and our tourism and event product providers to ensure that we've got more of a coordinated approach across Wellington for the tourism sector. One bit of interest, I did pick up in talking to Centreport yesterday. The data hasn't been finalised yet, so this is I don't want to officially break this, but what I can suggest is that when we get the net promoter scores for cruise ship visitors to both New Zealand and Wellington, that they could potentially be at a record high this year, which is great. And that's based on the experience of what they're seeing within our fine city. From the media side of things as well, I think we've had some really good wins over the quarter. Forbes picked up a fantastic article on our success around zero waste. That went to a huge reader audience, and there you go, Councillor. Yeah. Shared by our greatest advocate. The team did a huge amount of work with Lonely Planet around the Dark Skies offering in Wairarapa as well. Lonely Planet listed the Dark Skies experience in Wairarapa and the flow-on effects to Wellington as one of the best tourism spots for 2026 globally. So that's a fantastic achievement for that. The article that we helped pull together with Lonely Planet reached an audience of 272 million people. With equivalent advertising value of just shy of $5 million. So again, you see simple exercises like that where we can coordinate on a regional basis has massive global impact. And the other media event we had recently, of course, was the golf women's amateur Asia Pacific Golf Championship in the Hut. Perfectly timed from a weather perspective. Just finished before the clouds really came down, but that was broadcast to over 100 countries globally. And again, the ability to showcase Wellington within there as a destination is unbeatable. From a regional economic development plan perspective, again, looking at the period in review. The Economic Development team, along with the regional leadership group, has done a refresh of the Regional Economic Development Plan, which includes an enhanced chapter around Māori economic development as well. I think we're now starting, again, regionally and collectively starting to do some really good productive work in that space along with our iwi partners. Can I also say, from Tākina's perspective, particularly in terms of the conferencing market, we will have this year the strongest financial result than we've had since Tākina has opened. So look, there's certainly work to do on that. We saw an extension of the Michelangelo exhibition regionally as well. The sense that Tākina is losing X million dollars a quarter simply just does not stack up. So from Tākina's perspective, I think we're starting to make some really good progress within the Tākina space as well. Just very quickly looking at the next couple of months in terms of interest areas, potentially for council and public. Across our venue space, 64 performances in 60 days. So that, again, a really good opportunity to ensure that our venues are fully utilised as much as they can, and a great reflection of the work that the team is doing. From an event side, April's set to be a mega month. For us, we've of course got the Ultra Festival. Over 20,000 people booked into that, with a significant waiting list as well of attendees. As Warwick mentioned, we've got the Warriors in town, and great to hear that that'll be potentially their largest home game of the year. Fault Line Ultra is a event I won't be partaking in, but might be watching. Significant run and bike and other things around the glorious hills of Wellington. But again, it's been picked up by Air New Zealand as a feature event for them. And if you're travelling over this month, you'll certainly see that as part of your Kia Ora magazine. One that's slightly under the radar is the Pacific Brass Bands Festival. Happens over the weekend of Ultra, actually, but just over 4,000 will be attending that event. So again, a really good one for the hotel sector. Four bands from Australia, one band from the Pacific. So again, a good contribution to the Wellington economy. And just touching on our city and transition work as well, that continues to be great. But we've been working very closely with the Wellington City Council recently, and how we can divert some of that funding to help the businesses on the South Coast. We've been active in that space, very active in that space, and have ensured that we've diverted not only some financial resourcing and public resourcing, but also some staffing resourcing to work with council and businesses around that area as well. Conscious of time, but I just want to touch on CHQ as well and the work that they're doing. A really big couple of months for them coming up. We've got the FinTech event next week, which I know, again, a number of councillors are going to. The FinTech Festival in April, which is hosted by Wellington for the very first time. So again, a really good opportunity to establish Wellington as a FinTech centre. The Climate Tech Accelerator Program, and of course Tech Week coming up as well. Final thing I want to mention before I open up for questions is the screen sector as well is doing a lot of work. So our key industry sectors through the Regional Economic Development Plan and the work we're doing with councillors around tech, and screen. And for this month, around screen, we have the Wellington Animation Film Festival, which again is a great event for Wellington. And then very shortly after that, we have Māori Land Film Festival, which we've actively supported for a long time. The largest Indigenous film festival in the world is on our doorstep. So again, really good opportunities to leverage some of that as well. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. First questions from Councillor Compton.
Morning, thank you. In the Q&A that was provided, I noticed Creative HQ was budgeted to make a surplus, small surplus, 41,000. It's now forecasting a deficit of 71,000. Just wondering, is this an anomaly or a trend?
Yeah, it is, and some of that, councillor, may be timing differences as well. Just in terms of the scheduling of events, and we'll have a better picture of that as the financial year progresses.
Councillor Osborne, thank you.
Thanks. I'm just wondering if you could expand a little bit on the support you've been offering the South Coast businesses.
Yeah, so our City and Transition team has been working primarily with Courtney Place of late in terms of some of that's one-to-one with businesses, and some of that support is helping in terms of marketing resource, so how we market the region. So we're doing some work with City, what are they called? Neat Places. That's what I'm thinking. Neat Places in terms of promotional pieces around the region. We're working with individual businesses in terms of cash flow opportunities as well, ensuring that from a business perspective they're aware of some of the services that are available to businesses. So sometimes it's one-on-one and sometimes it's one-to-many, but we try to tailor that provision based on the businesses that are out there.
Great, thanks very much. Question from Mayor Little. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks very much for the presentation, Tracy and Mark. Just a very quite sort of detailed question, but in the report we had, and you mentioned it, you had the figure up there on your slides. The measure you've got called engagement on Wellington's own digital channels and platforms. I didn't quite understand the figure that was being used, nor the explanation in the footnote. Can you explain what the measure is and how it works? It says your full year target is 55, you're currently at 38. I would have thought an index is the same throughout if you're achieving the reach that you're aiming for. So I just need some explanation about what that actually means.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mayor. To be honest, I was hoping no one was going to ask that question actually, because it is quite a complex measure. It's an industry standard measure, but it is a quite complex measure, and I'm very happy to circulate the exact calculation of that to the committee so that you're very clear of it. One of the things we are looking in terms of our SOI this year is having more of a glossary of how some of our key KPIs are actually determined. Again, we use industry benchmarks in terms of what those are, but sometimes it's quite a complex calculation, but very happy to provide that too. Yeah.
Great, thanks very much. Are there any more questions? Okay, I have a question for you, Mark. You're talking about the smaller cruise lines. You're focusing on the smaller cruise lines coming here. Now, a lot of these smaller lines have particular objectives, and so one of them, like for example Viking, they focus on education. Disney focuses on Mickey. So do you have different strategies for the different cruise lines?
Yeah, and so we're working increasingly closer with the cruise lines industries themselves in terms of what that product development should be. And look, I think you're right, Chair. A great Wellington experience often is a tailored experience for the visitor. So our ability to work closer with Te Papa in terms of what some of those behind the scenes opportunities may look like. We've recently seen Viking sponsor the Royal New Zealand Ballet as well. So the opportunities to link up with some of our cultural performances, NZSO and all those sorts of things, I think adds to that experience as well.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you again, Tracy.
Yes.
Right, next we'd like to invite the Wellington Museums Trust up, Diana Marsh, CEO, and Alicia Harris. Thank you. Thank you, welcome to the podium.
Can you hear me? I'll just adjust this. So thank you for the opportunity to provide our Q2 update. So to our first slide, Alicia is playing the slide controller. Currently our year-to-date surplus is 795,000, which includes depreciation, and we're on track to make a solid surplus at the end of the year, and our figures do include depreciation. Our non-council revenue year-to-date is 1,422,000, and we've got unrecognised 252,000 of fundraising, which we've achieved but is still sitting on our balance sheet because we have to recognise it as the activities occur. Our spend per visitor is $4.58, and our physical visitation from Q2 was 113,000, and our total visitation is 200,000, just down from our projections, but we had a very sluggish December and January, which we attribute to the cruise ships because actually our domestic visitation was up, but we've had a very strong February, so we think that will change. Another factor is that we cut the number of off-site City Gallery exhibitions this year than originally planned. We've been showing at the National Library and we cut that by 2, so those will have an impact. But we're still in a strong position, aren't we, Alicia, to achieve our goals at this stage, I think, though not necessarily at the individual sites. Q2 highlights. First of all, City Gallery. We're in the process during Q2 of developing a process to create a sculpture on the sculpture terrace, and it's commission that we went out to the public for, or to the artists for, and we received 46 submissions, and we're in the process of finalising that decision. It will be viewed from Harris Street, and it's a semi-permanent sculpture, and it will be ready in February 2027. At the Wellington Museum, we've had an exhibition of Fat Freddy's Drop, and we believe this has been successful and the reason why we've had increased domestic visitation at the Wellington Museum. It's started with a sold-out event, and we've also extended it to cover the time that they're touring in Wellington. Nuku Te Ao, Capital E, we closed at Queen's Wharf and we've moved into the library, to Matapihi. We're really excited about the possibilities. We've changed the way we put together our spaces. That includes permanent exhibitions rather than changed exhibitions or play visitation activities, and we're looking forward to opening it to the public on opening day on the 14th of March, and it's looking really fabulous, so do go and look. Both the Media Lab for the older teenagers and young people to experience, and also Play HQ, which is for 5 and under. Cable Car Museum visitation, as I said, was sluggish in December and January, resulting in a retail downturn, but we've had very strong results in February, so that's picked up and hopefully mitigated that downturn. Nairn Street Cottage, we're changing the way we do things a little bit, so at the moment we're planning to go out and get some applications and submissions for an artist response to the Nairn Street, and have an artist work showing up there to attract a different type of visitor and more visitors to the cottage itself. Shop Wellington is our retail platform, and we significantly transformed it in Q2, and that's led to a 34% increase in sales compared with last year. So that's been hugely successful. Financial challenges. Well, actually, we're fine at the moment financially, and part of the reason is we have had the City Gallery closed, but we've also changed the way in which we budget and how we approach our budgeting cycle, and we are actually at the moment working on an income strategy to increase our income, our non-council income. Cruise ship season is now at its peak, and overall income is slightly higher than budget, so that's pleasing to see, and that's thanks to the work of Alicia's team. Expectations at this point are still that retail income could drop potentially up to 15%, but that's in line with our expected visitor numbers and our projections. So non-financial challenges, visitation across the sites has been lagging, considerably below previous years. Again, we attribute that largely to the reduction in cruise ships and the closure of City Gallery, which obviously has a big impact on our numbers, and the reduced exhibitions off-site. Obviously, the ongoing issues of the Bond store and how we look after the museum, how we look at continuing exhibitions, how we replace failing equipment. So that's an ongoing issue for it with the Bond store that we've discussed previously. Coming up in in the next quarter. We've got a fashion biennale at City Gallery in June, and that's Wellington fashion businesses, and it's led by Yumi, the designer label Yumi, and that's really exciting, and that will happen just before our Cornelia Parker exhibition, which is going to open to the public on the 10th of October, and sales for tickets have occurred now. So we've already sold some tickets to that, so that's exciting. Don't ask me how many, but it was 6 in the first hour. That's all I can tell you at this point. And staff move into the gallery in 2 weeks' time, so that's all very exciting. And it's really wonderful that the council has been able to finish the gallery, on time. It's quite remarkable. So I just want to make that comment, not because of the council, but a building project like that. So just passing that comment. Wellington Museum. We're planning a Capital of Kai exhibition, and that's celebrating Wellington restaurants, and we timed it to coincide with Wellington on a Plate and WOW, and the Korora project, which is a Little Blue Penguin project, which we're doing in collaboration with Mana Whenua, Wellington Zoo and Zealandia. Nuku Te Ao, capital E, as I mentioned, we've got new permanent design at Play HQ, and we're excited about opening. And our venue hire has had some interesting results. It's been down since, government has pulled its belt in and stopped spending over the last 2 or 3 years, but it's picked up, and we had our strongest January since 2021, and February saw our highest number of bookings since July 2024. So generally things are fairly well on track, and we're just working to the opening of our sites and having sites that we can open and be excited about and engage the public with them, with new experiences. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to open it up for questions. Councillor, yes, sir. Yep.
Hello. I note on the report it says their failure risk and priority requirements remain oversubscribed in terms of capital. I'm just wondering what particular capital areas are at risk or are being deferred?
Things like computer equipment or exhibition design those sorts of things. All to do with the exhibitions. I mean, the council looks after the buildings, we look after the design, but it's equipment failure largely. Yeah.
Are there any more questions? No. I'd actually like to ask, when you actually look at the different groups of people coming here, do you focus on people coming in from outside of Wellington, or do you actually look at the people in Wellington, or do you take it all as one sort of demographic group?
Oh, we definitely divide up between Wellington, outside Wellington, and the regions as well as overseas.
Okay, so on that question, on that same subject, do you advertise outside of Wellington, or do people come onto our website and look to see what's actually happening here?
Well, we have significant social media campaigns which advertises throughout the country and focuses in on Wellington. But we are actually looking at a new audience strategy, and we've been doing some work around that, and it's also incorporating education as part of that, which is what a number of different places, museums and galleries do. So we're actually looking at changing that.
Thanks very much. Councillor Tittenbarger.
So when you do these strategies, do you work in with Wellington and Z? It seems that quite often we all do our own thing and we work separately, where we should be probably just pooling resources, if you like, and maximising as much as possible.
Well, that's a really good question and suggestion, and that's something I'll take into account actually. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And do we have any more questions? No? Great. Thank you very much, Diana. Thank you. Right, we'll take a morning tea break now for 10 minutes. If you can be back by 11:10, thank you. Sorry, right, we now have Wellington Cable Car. Tansy, good to see you again. Thank you. And Fergus, sorry.
Hey, kia ora koutou, Fergus Brown, Toki Wingawa. Great to be here again, and great to be here in person this time rather than trying to beam in from Rotorua. The cable car has had an interesting Q2. We've been impacted, like many of our colleagues, by the downturn in the cruise sector. And we are seeing that this will in fact continue on for this year. Tansy will go into a lot more detail on, I'll just touch on some top line points. We do see it improving though in 27-28, that summer or summer season, so it's not all doom and gloom. We have taken actions to address the impact of the downturn in the cruise market. We have made some price increases, but not for Wellingtonians. We have also discussed with some detail a range of options of increasing our revenue from other areas as well. We were also impacted this last quarter by the additional work in our annual shutdown, the additional work required to remove rust from one of the cars. This cost a lot more than expected, but it will be taken in, and we're still aiming at a break-even situation. Health and safety is still a major concern for us, and we are continuing the seismic work. I think you'd join me in congratulating the team at Wellington Cable Car in achieving Qualmark Gold this year. It's an external assessment. It's the national quality rating, and we had an excellent result this year, which is great. The other thing which I think is important just to signal, and once again Tansy will go into more detail, is that we are in the very early planning stages of preparing for new cars for the Wellington Cable Car. This is not something like going out and buying a new Kia. It is something quite major and involves control systems as well. So we just ask your support as we go through this process. Hopefully we'll be able to fund a fair bit of it ourselves, but we may have to come to you for long-term planning funding, but we'll let you know about that. I'll now hand over to Tansy.
Thanks, Fergus. Kia ora koutou. Looking forward to taking you through some of our results and highlights and just touching on what's coming up in Q3. So Q2 results, a little bit like everyone else, a little bit down in passenger numbers, so 12,000 down in passengers, but we'd forecast for that drop-off in cruise, so this is sort of in addition to that. But I think Karen, either in her report or mentioned, 20 days out of 31 in October were raining and the 2 red weather warnings. So that particular week that was awful. Cable car needs sunny days. If that was a sunny day every day that week, we would have had 1,500 more people each day. And November wasn't much better either. So revenue, of course, is down a little bit for those same reasons. And just how those passengers break down. So I mentioned this last time, but for the new councillors, everything in green there, those are the sort of tourist market segments. They're either paying full general admission price or family pricing, wholesales. We've got quite a few trade partners in the wholesale space. But that's how it breaks down. So that's fairly typical for our passenger breakdown. Obviously, commuters a little bit lower in Q2 because everyone's off having a lovely Christmas holiday. And the rest of the results doing pretty well, still smashing that waste diversion target. Qualmark Gold, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute, and Whakahaere have reissued our rail safety licence. Also doing quite well in the Net Promoter Score space with an average of 73%. So we've been putting quite a lot of focus on our visitor experience. We've introduced a new visitor experience role as well, just a shared role with one of our teams. So they're always on the floor, just always looking for how we can improve things and how we can enhance our visitor experience. So Qualmark Gold, so if you don't know what it is, this is Tourism New Zealand's sort of quality check. So they assess businesses against the sustainable tourism business criteria. and then they award the business bronze, silver or gold. So there's 5 pillars, business systems, people, health and safety, those sorts of things, and each one of the pillars has several assessment criteria. So of the 23 assessment criteria, cable car scored 22 at best practice. So really, really proud of that result. It's kind of a little annoying though, isn't it? Because you just missed by one. So we've got one thing that we need to do some more work on. We got good for that one, but we'll be working really hard so that next year's assessment hopefully might see us potentially get the highest score in the country. So really, really pleased with that. Other highlights, so with the Council's Seniors Week, we opened up the Winding Room again and did some tours. It's the 3rd year of our calendar, our charity calendar, so we should be donating probably another $5,000, just doing the calculations at the moment. That goes to the Blind Low Vision Guide Dogs program. The collaboration with Tākina, so the Michelangelo exhibition, we had the decals up on the ceilings of the car. I was trying to figure it out yesterday from October-ish till it closed, and I think probably 400,000 to 500,000 people would have been on the cars during the time that they were on the ceiling. So there's no way to tell if that meant that they did go to the exhibition, but I'd like to think that that made a bit of a difference. So the other good thing about that is it's made us realise that there is an opportunity to make some more revenue by renting that space out. We'd obviously be really careful about what that was, though, to have to align with our values, and yeah, we won't be putting anything up there. And we also, the team went to the Tourism Awards, so we were a finalist in the Tourism Excellence Award. We didn't win, the company that did deserve it, but it was just a great moment to be recognised in that space. Other highlights, someone mentioned the Wellington Advent Calendar. We had a really good number of people come through with our deal, which was $2 after 2 o'clock. And we also, for the first time, I think it's the first time, had a radio station. So My FM broadcast from the Kelburn terminal for about 3 hours. There was lots of people running in and out trying to get competition subway vouchers or something, but My FM's quite well known in Auckland, and it does broadcast around 10 other cities, I think. So it's just quite a cool opportunity to get in front of, well, in the ears of a sort of 18 to 34-year-old demographic and domestic audience who might come and visit us next time they come to Wellington. So that was quite cool. Quarter 2, we also progressed seismic strengthening. You might remember in quarter 1, I mentioned that we had a list of priorities. The first one was some catch brackets for the bridges. I'm not going to try and do what they are, but it's just sort of extending what would catch if the bridge moved. You know, you just want to extend this. So that was the first thing that we were doing. We're having a little bit of problem with consent for that. We've now resolved all those RFIs, requests for information, and we have that consent, but as we were waiting for the consent, we moved on with the pier strengthening, which is that picture at the bottom. And as we've moved on with that work, we've realised that some of the pier strengthening options might eliminate or reduce the need for the catch brackets. So we've gone back to the engineers just so that they can finalise that for us, because we don't want to spend a whole lot of money on something that we don't need to, obviously. But we've had the heritage people in as well. As you can imagine, that's always a delicate balance when you're, I need to stick a steel pole through there and there's a lovely rocker bearing underneath that you're not meant to touch. So that's always an interesting balance. But next steps with that, so we've got detailed design for the pier strengthening coming in the next couple of weeks, then we'll go for building consent, and we look to start construction this year, hopefully. Other challenges, similar to other times I've talked to you, I actually did put weather on there this time though, because it really was, it did make a big difference for us in quarter 2. The cruise decline continues. We'll perhaps talk more about this at the end of March in our statement intent meeting, but obviously I'm looking to next year for forecasting those budgets, and Wellington unfortunately will again see quite a big decline of about 25%. So For Wellington, that's about 65% decline in 3 years, so 140,000 passengers. So I was just doing some calculations yesterday, 140,000 passengers not here, about 70% come to the cable car, one-way return, average of $9.25, that's $900,000 that 3 years ago was walking through the doors of the cable car, or the gates, and they won't be next year. So, that's very challenging. Asset renewals, so just in that space, so this is a very high level look at an initial timeline. So we're starting to think about this in Q2 of what it will take to replace the cable cars. So this is sort of just following this graph, and that's a 2-year time frame. That first thing around assessing the existing equipment, that's things we're starting to think about now. So what will we need in the future? Will they need to be bigger? How many visitors are going to come to Wellington? If they're bigger, what does that mean for the track and the stations and the number of doors and all that sort of stuff? So we'll start this process within a few years. And the reason I'm telling you about it now is there's that balance again of how much money do we spend on the current cars? How many parts do we purchase and have on site, and how much do we spend on rust repairs and stuff, knowing that eventually we'll be replacing the cars? So we think about that every time we're looking at a big expense. But one of the things that we are going to do is replace the car jacks. So the jacks are, well, like a car jack, you're lifting the car up to when you're changing the bogies during the annual maintenance shutdown. These aren't unsafe, but engineering standards and stuff move on, so we know that there's better options for jacking the car up, well, namely suspending it rather than pushing it up. So we'll be looking to spend a couple of $100,000 on this in the next 2 years, sometime in the next 2 years, as soon as we can. We're getting costs, an estimate from Doppelmayr at the moment. But what we also have to do is make sure that the money that we spend on this one, these jacks, can be used with whatever the cars look like in the future. So there's this sort of awkward in between of, trying to pick something for a design process that we haven't started yet. But Doppelmayr will help us with that. So, and just the last thing about asset renewals in Q3. So we're going to be spending a bit of money. You would have seen that we had a wee breakdown maybe in February. We were closed for a day and a half. That really hurt our revenue. And the reason that we were broken down is that white thing up in the top corner, which is the FUA system. There's the instructions, all in German, and lots of manuals and stuff. So that FUA system makes the cars go. It's, there's 40 cards in that thing there. They all look like this with capacitors and bits and pieces. There's 40 there. There's about 30 on each car, and we've got about 30 spare. So we're just at the moment trying to figure out which of the cards are the critical ones for operating the car. So it doesn't matter if the microphone doesn't work in the car, but you need everything else too. And get those cards assessed so we're proactive maintenance, but they are expensive, up to $1,000 each to test all those capacitors and stuff. So we will be spending some money though in Q3 on getting those cards checked and making sure that we don't end up in a situation of being closed for a day and a half, because that was most unfortunate. It was a cruise day as well that we were closed, so that really hurt. And the last thing's coming up in Q3, so new website should be launching. It's also got a new video on it. Wellington City Council media team helped us shoot that video. We'll be doing, this is funny, the Q3 thing, like we have done some of the stuff, but we'll continue to do more in the Kelvin precinct area. We've been supporting charities with sausage sizzles. We've had some local businesses like Wellington Chocolate Factory coming up on the busy cruise days and having their stand there. We will also progress that price increase, so that'll come in on the 1st of July. It'll just be for general admission, so no increase for our locals. And everybody's favourite, insurance negotiations, so we're just doing that at the moment, but hoping, it sounds like there's some good capacity in the London markets, and we're hoping that we might actually get a premium reduction as we did last year. And that
If I could just add just a couple of things, I think probably Tansy's underplayed the importance of being a finalist in the New Zealand Tourism Awards. To be a finalist is actually a great honour and shows an enormous amount of work, because I know the judging procedures of that, and so I think she should be congratulated for that. And the other thing which you should also be pleased, many of you may be aware, but those who don't, is Tansy is also the chair of the New Zealand Cruise Association. So we have an inside person there. And Tansy,
to give you all the bad news.
And she travels to places like Miami with the chief executives of the ports to do the negotiations. So we're very lucky to have an insider working on that cruise business, because it is such an essential part of Wellington's tourism visitation.
Great, thank you. We have a couple of questions. Councillor Compton.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got two questions. The critical spares you mentioned, have you had a look at other critical spares that might be required to avoid, I guess, the close downs in future?
We have, yeah. So we pretty much have a spare of everything because of the long lead time to get them. Probably the only thing that we don't have a spare of is the actual motor. So that's because it's about $150,000, so we don't want to have a spare, but what we do is regular like vibration analysis and all that work that will tell us if something is going to go wrong, so that we'd have enough time to air freight one over, yeah.
I'm loving the conversation about proactive maintenance, because to me that is absolutely essential in an infrastructure business. So that's, thank you. And my second question is, for those that are unaware, what are the drivers for the cruise number drop that's significant? I'm just wondering what the drivers are. I'm assuming we don't have a lot of ability to influence that, but I'm just curious what that is.
The key drivers for the drop over the last 3 years, why we're seeing what we're seeing now, are around costs. So that's port costs, government costs have just gone up and up and up, and it gets to a point where people are sitting in Miami making a decision on whether they go to Japan or New Zealand, and New Zealand costs even $1 more per passenger. They might just make that decision to go to Japan. So there's the cost. There's also the fact that a lot of the costs and regulations are bought in quite quickly. So cruise lines are planning 2 to 3 years in advance. They've sold the itinerary. It's gone. So when we put a new cost in and say that's going to apply from this season, that goes straight to the cruise line's bottom line, just takes it off. So those are the main ones. There was a lot of stuff around uncertainty for a while, like would cruise ships be allowed to go into Milford? And Milford is like... It's like going to Australia without going to Sydney and seeing the Opera House. If a ship can't go to Milford, they won't come to New Zealand probably. So that certainty was lifted. Well, so last year the government said no, that they weren't going to ban access to Milford. Those are the main things: costs, regulations, timing. Yeah.
Sorry, just to follow up. I just say, I do note that Centreport made record profits this year. What's the likelihood that they may drop their prices, reduce their profits, so we can at least get the cruises back?
Well, you have to talk to Anthony and Lockie about that. Well, all I can say is that Centreport have been amazing. Wellington a few years ago, not necessarily any one person. There were a lot of problems with shuttles and all sorts of stuff, and some of that we're still seeing play out now. That's why we're probably still down next year. But I know a lot of the ports have been saying that they'll keep their pricing for 3 years or 5 years. Some other ports around the country, I'm sure there's negotiations going on at Wellington Port as well. But they have been amazing, and I know they've done things to, for example, bring back Princess Cruises, bringing more ships back within another couple of years. Yeah.
I think we also have very strong central government support for the cruise sector, which it's taken a lot of work to get to. It's not that other governments haven't supported the cruise sector, it's just that it's been invisible. Cruise numbers aren't measured. The arrivals from cruise ships are not measured. They're not counted as part of New Zealand visitor arrivals unless someone flies in and then joins a cruise. So it's sort of like the invisible thousands travelling around the country spending money. So I think there's now there's been more research which has been done, so people have a much better understanding of the value which cruise provides, not just to the tourism sector, but also the wider retail, hospitality, across the whole sectors of business.
Great. Councillor Osborne.
Thanks. First of all, I just wanted to quickly congratulate you on the initiative to work with the Wellington Chocolate company. That sounds like a great idea and something that maybe other businesses could be brought into. I have a question actually similar to Councillor Compton around the cruise ship numbers. We heard earlier Mark from Wellington NZ was quite bullish about the cruise ship market and its health and its capacity to improve over the next few years. We've just heard from you quite a different perspective, and we've just learnt that you are the chair of the Cruise Association of New Zealand. Why do we have such different views there?
I think I was listening to Mark as well. I think he was just saying that it's been a good season, and that Centreport. I mean, it's great that the strategy's come along, which means that all of those stakeholders within the Wellington region are all sort of focused on the same thing. It will come back in a couple of years, is where most of the industry intel is going. I think Mark was also talking about the size of the ships. So we have. Think of the ships coming to Wellington and New Zealand this year and next year. There's about 50% of them are less than 1,000 passengers, and only about 15% of them have more than 3,000 passengers. And you do need that mix. So something like the cable car or other big tourism products around the country, it's nice to have those small ships that come in and spend lots of money. But if there's only 150 people on board and you've got a tourism attraction that's built for thousands, you need that volume as well. So. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Councillor Tittenbarger?
Yeah, so obviously you are quite affected by weather, you're quite affected by cruise ship numbers and things like that. Are there actually any drivers you can actually do to get more people onto the cable car, considering most of those drivers are outside your control? I mean, and I'm not saying that with any disrespect at all. It's just that I can imagine it would be incredibly hard for you just as a cable car organisation to do those drivers. What are they?
Yeah, and it is hard because we operate in a small corridor. It's not like I can build something else there and have a conference venue as well. But I guess more partnerships with other local businesses to sell more product. So that idea of the joined up carbon zero product with East by West, cable car, Zealandia shuttle, through to Zealandia. We can do a little bit more in the domestic marketing space, potentially, and things that are really popular and do bring people in are the likes of the Spring Sundays and family day passes. But, it's hard. There's 140,000 people missing. There's not... I'll never be able to do a campaign that will fill that gap, so that's why we have to raise the prices as well. Yeah.
So just one more question. So do you, just as I asked the museums as well, how closely do you work in with Wellington NZ to make sure that, again, as a city, we're doing everything together to make sure that we're driving visitors to all the right spaces through one really concerted advertising side?
Yeah, I mean, we do work closely with Wellington NZ, so they have a really good tourism team that we catch up with probably every 6 weeks, and they're also always telling us what they've got going on so that we can go, that sounds like a cool event. Can we put a promotion in there so that people get 20% discount at the cable car? So, they're great.
Just another comment on the business, and I think it's not something which is Q2 related, but it's more in the future, is around the Kelburn precinct. And it is in our documents. It's something we are looking at, but it's something I think it's a whole of council type project that when research was done about how long customers would expect to spend up at the top of a cable car, and then how long they actually did, it was about half, because of what's up there. So we have work to do up there, but it's not just us. But there is an opportunity. If we can have more things happening up there, we can get probably more people coming up there, staying longer. But we need to invest in that because I don't know how many of you have been up there lately, but there, it's not something which really is. We could make it a lot better. I think it's a huge opportunity.
Great, thank you very much. We're running out of time, but I'd like to ask one last question. I've walked along Lambert Quay when there's been queues of cruise ship passengers sort of queuing up along the footpath there, and I've talked to them about the experience in Wellington and coming onto the cable car, and a lot of the comments were about the rough sleepers sitting there. And so I'm just wondering if we can actually enhance the experience in when they're queuing up. Like, is it possible to, I don't know, speed it up so that they're not spending so long in the queue? Or is there some way that we can, I don't know.
Not really, actually. So with the cable car goes every 10 minutes at 4 metres per second. When we're busy, we go non-stop at 5 metres per second, and that's all we can do. But the queue moves quite quickly because you can get up to about 70 people on a car at a time. So even though you're in the queue, all of a sudden you move forward 50 metres. So average queue time's maybe about 20 minutes if you're at the back. Yeah.
Okay, great. So when these cruise ship passengers queue up there, do we actually also mix them with other passengers that are there, or do we give them priority to get up there and get down?
Anyone who's buying a ticket, they go this way with the arrow. Anyone who's local, and we have people sitting there waiting for people to come up with their multi-card and a terrified look on their face when they see the queue, and we whisk them through, straight through the front, round the back, onto the car. So we really make sure that our locals are taken care of.
Great. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Would like to now call with the Danielle from the Karori Sanctuary Trust. Thank you. Welcome, Danielle.
I'm not on. I'm on now. So apologies from our board chair, Russell Spratt, but yes, I'm Danielle, adjunct professor at the university as well as chief executive at Zealandia, Te Maratane. So thank you for having me today. Anytime we talk about Zealandia, we always start with our conservation impact. That's where it begins with us. That's what drives our visitation, our revenue, our storytelling. But for us, it's been an incredible quarter. The most fun element, perhaps, was a very timely appearance of a surprise chick of our Whakahaere at Zealandia. So we had what was called an infertile pair. They hatched a chick by surprise, and we were able to announce that just prior to Christmas. So it managed to get international awareness. So, The Guardian had an international article announcing our miracle chick. So these sorts of stories are fantastic, they're appealing, but they enable us to tell our wider story far and wide across the world. So that's pretty neat. So there will be an opportunity, I think Mana Whenua will be naming this chick later this year. But we keep marching towards our 500-year vision of restoration. Of course, again, that is front and centre for us. That long-term scenario is key and paramount. We've had some really good results over the summer season. We've had birds breeding. I wish I'd put a different photo of the hihi up there. Hihi have fabulous Wellington colours, great yellows and blacks. They really are iconic for us. But this is a species that is struggling international, it's highly endangered, and Zealandia is a stronghold for these birds. So anything like this sort of species, again, as I mentioned, it's a bumper season, but actually surrounding this are PhDs, master's students, collaborations with London Zoological Society, collaborations with Auckland researchers. This is high impact work that is expressed in our success in restoration. So pretty neat stuff. In terms of our business strategy, we've been working on really focusing on our functions and venue hire part of our work. We are seeing an uptick intake. We have some really exceptional venues. And in the last quarter, we invested heavily in our Pātiki room, and we opened that through our corporate membership launch. So we have corporate partners, but corporate memberships is a special product that can be purchased by businesses, and it's effectively buying a membership for their staff members and then giving them add value through discounts to our functions, catering and so on. So it's designed to help drive our business strategy and increasing revenue through this type of stream. And it's going well so far. Now, from a learning perspective, I'm really happy to report some quite significant investment from philanthropists in our learning program, so around 170K. Some of that's yet to flow through the bank account yet. But what that means is we can reinforce our commitment to young people and start to deepen that education experience that we can offer at Zealandia. We do, as a trust, a not-for-profit trust, we do have quite considerable power, and you saw this in the zoo's presentation as well, to really drive philanthropy and to add value services for our city that also align with our city strategy. So this is a beautiful example of that. Oh, hopefully you can see that on your screens there. Sorry, that's a bit tiny. I just wanted to talk a little bit about visitation. We've heard from the other CCOs that it has been softer in the last few months. We've experienced the same. So the little orange line there is this year's visitation against the blue line of last financial year. So you can see it's a little bit down. A lot of drivers for that, the cruise, the weather. People don't really want to come to Zealandia when it's sleeting, interestingly. But interestingly, on the flip side, we are converting more people to higher value products. So our night tours are an example of that. So what you can see in that line is the top line is night tour visitation this financial year, so 2025-26, and the blue line's last financial year. So that's our premium product, and we're often booked up months in advance, so get your tickets now. But I think that's a really powerful story for us, and we are, I guess, doubling down on that. So looking at collaborative opportunities with, for example, Te Papa to really provide more of these high value products that really do generate significant revenue, more revenue per person coming in. Good for time. So just to have a little quick recap on our financial performance, we are in cooee of our budget, just shy. Before depreciation, we're tracking break even in our Q2 outcomes. So we have had significant investment in the last couple of years on CapEx items. So we've replaced our shuttles, thanks to some help from Wellington City as well. We've replaced a ute, which served for almost 20 years. These are necessary investments that help our business remain resilient into the future, our business and operations. Pātiki room, I mentioned that as well. So we've invested in that, those facilities, the venue hire aspect of our business, and that helps us achieve better outcomes in the future. But what that means is our depreciation costs have gone up. So, we see that flowing through in our financial projections into the future. We've just done a reforecast. We have indicated a softer result than we had indicated in our year end, but again, still a $220,000 estimated surplus before depreciation, and we think that's a very conservative estimate. So you'll see that coming through in our SOI draft that will come through at some stage, I know. So we're still healthy. Zealandia is incredibly responsive. We have high personnel costs, but we have quite an ability to flex to a shifting market as well. So if there's increased demand, we staff up. If there's lower demand, we can pull back. So we're very flexible in that respect. All right, I'll do a little bit of looking forward. We got really hit by that storm, like so many others. And, the zoo did a fantastic job of looking after so many birds, so many manu. For us, what that storm damage meant was, of course, looking at the fence first up. Did we have any incursions? Things look good so far. But we did see huge tree fall. So some very, very large trees fell over some of our major tracks. We managed to get open pretty quickly, like within the next day. So the Lowy Valley is open, but the wider extent of the valley, we still have some major tracks that are closed, and that's where the costs start piling up. So we bring in arborists to deal with our most gnarly tree falls. So we also ran an appeal, 41,000 with, pretty limited effort, to be honest, to raise that money, and that's come through. That's the support of Wellingtonians for these assets, the zoo, for Zealandia, for the places that we value and add value to our city. So that's pretty neat. So a few interesting things coming up. So looking ahead, we of course have that young Whakahaere that will need to be named. Well, I'm hopeful we're going to see a couple of new Whakahaere coming to Zealandia as well, and that's always great for visitors, getting to engage with a species where there's only 500 left in the whole world. So that's pretty amazing. We're also likely to have kiwi puku going out again. So a small number of kiwi, our population is doing so well that we can support conservation elsewhere. So there's some key things coming ahead, but I wanted to end with something pretty special. There was a Hawaiian bill introduced to the Senate and passed by the Senate earlier this year. I'm just going to give you a couple of quotes from it. The legislature, that's a hard word, the legislature finds that numerous species in the state of Hawaii are on the brink of extinction. They recognise that Zealandia Timaratane is a pioneering conservation sanctuary in Wellington, New Zealand, best known for proving how dramatically nature can rebound with proper protection. And then they go on a bit about Zealandia in that bill. And then they say, just as importantly, Zealandia's impact extends beyond the fence line. Thriving populations disperse outward into surrounding neighbourhoods, helping wildlife return. And then they go on a bit more about Zealandia in that bill. And finally, they say, accordingly, the purpose of this act is to establish a non-profit entity to create and manage endangered species sanctuaries in Hawaii. So yes, we're reversing the loss of biodiversity locally, but holy heck, look at this international impact. That came from hosting a Hawaiian senator at Zealandia and showing him firsthand that change. So yeah, I think the city should be incredibly proud of this place, and it belongs to all of you. It's because of all of you, so thank you for your ongoing support. And look at that, 10 minutes, perfect timing.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions? Mayor Little?
Thank you, and thank you, Danielle, too, for that presentation and for the endorsement from our Hawaiian brothers and sisters. I said to you before, actually, in a lot of when I'm doing my spiel to, particularly to overseas groups, I talk about our export of environmental science, which is, of course, a reference to Zealandia, so thank you for that. This is a kind of a tangential question, but one of the issues that the council has been grappling with for the last couple of weeks and will continue to is there is a rare native orchid that the council has been supporting its protection of for some time through, I think it's the Wiltonotari sort of thing. The champions of that cause have moved on, and there is a question about how we sustain this very precious orchid. Is that something that Zealandia would or could pick up? Is that within its remit?
It's a great question. I'd have to give it more thought, but my instinct in response is we collaborate strongly with Otari Wilson's bush already. The challenge with some of these native species is they're very site-specific. They might be good one spot and not another, and that's often the case that we find even within the same catchment, because we are in the same catchment as Otari. So I think Zealandia staying focused on making sure we're heading towards that 500-year vision is key, and that's something that's always front of mind for me, but we're always open to collaborations that help us further these sorts of outcomes. So yeah, it's a non-compelling answer there, but you know, something always worth considering. Indeed.
Great, thanks. Sorry, Councillor Osborne?
I'll just quickly pick up on that. Thanks for all the mahi, by the way. I think we all agree across the table how magnificent Zealandia is and has been for our city. I know Zealandia does a lot of work in the Mountains to Sea program around the Kaiwharawhara catchment, which obviously you're part of. I wonder if you could maybe just, if you are aware, if you could give us some of the key challenges in that catchment and some of the actions that maybe from a council perspective we could help to improve the health of that catchment.
Oh, what a great question. So Zealandia leads a project called Kia Mauri Ora Te Kaiwharawhara, Sanctuary to Sea. So the whole purpose of that project is to bring our community together to further the health and well-being of that particular catchment. So it's a 100-year vision of restoration. It has familiar thoughts given Zealandia's own goals, But there are key challenges. So if we don't plan our city with biodiversity at consideration right at the beginning, we can end up with some pretty perverse outcomes. That might mean, for example, impacts from sewage planning, drainage. All of those kinds of things impact habitat and health of our water ecosystems. So you can actually start with nature as one of the fundamental building blocks of a city environment. That is what I'd be encouraging. It's not just sewage and drainage, it's about all of those things that we plan, our transport, our housing. There's a lot of remediation we need to do. Zealandia is keen to be taking the lead on some of the stuff, and sometimes it's quite hard to get breakthrough. So any collaboration that we can do across the city through all of the different types of departments that we have in places like Wellington City Council is really valued. Yeah.
Great. Sorry, thank you. Are there any more questions? No? Okay. Daniel, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. You're talking about the success of your night tours. How is the capacity of that? Like, do you have additional capacity? Like, are you limited by anything to have more tours to entice more people there?
Good question, Ray. So the interesting thing about Zealandia is you've kind of got this closed system. Like, once you get to a point, if you increase visitors, you start to impact the very system that you're relying on to drive your revenue. So night tours are a great example. So we do limit them to 4 tours per night. And then on top of that, you could get limited by staffing. But the 4 tours per night means that we make sure that that Kiwi population always remains healthy. So yes, we do put a strong limit on that. So we need to get creative and be really smart about how we, I guess, use those limited visits to help support the conservation work as well.
Mm-hmm. Great, that's good, thanks. And thinking about the Hawaiian senator that you hosted there, that sort of, do you think that this is an opportunity to perhaps have a function where you can include, when you can invite the diplomatic corps from Wellington, because we had a function at the library just recently, and we had 40 ambassadors there. So I see this as being a possible method of actually introducing Zealandia to all these different countries, if they can actually have a visit, take this information back to their own countries.
You're dead right, Ray, and we actively engage with the diplomatic corps. We're so close to Parliament, they'd be crazy not to use us to sell the country, eh? So yes, that is something that we actively do already, so good suggestion.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you very much, and thanks for all the great work you do.
Thank you.
Right, now, last but not least, the Basin Reserve Trust. I'd like to invite Todd Bryant and Blair Duncan up. Thank you very much. Welcome to the podium.
Kia ora everyone. My name's Blair Duncan, the General Manager of Facilities at Cricket Wellington, and Todd Bryant, who's the CEO at Cricket Wellington, and on behalf of the Trust, we look after the operation of the Basin Reserve. Firstly, lovely to see you all again, and great to see you. Johnny, you've been a great addition to the Trust since you've started, and obviously being a big cricket fan really helps, so hopefully not too tired after that fantastic performance last night from the Black Caps. We're last cab off the rank, as you said, Councillor Chung, and not to mention how hard it is to follow Zealandia, so I'll try to keep it fairly punchy just as we get through it. Very good. So I'll start with some of the highlights. Working through some pretty major capital projects at the moment, and the first ones being the Mid-Wicket broadcast tower and the structures in the RA Vance. So there's a real push from New Zealand Cricket to try to make venues as turnkey ready as possible. So both these projects were key to reduce the temporary infrastructure that we've got at the ground, and somehow we managed to deliver both of them under budget and on time, which I'm not sure if that's a record, but if it is, that'd be fantastic. There's a few more projects to go that we're still working through, but we're just in a little bit of a tricky period, I suppose, with what's going on with the roading around that. So we've had some really productive meetings with Whakahaere. They came along to the test match against the West Indies in December just to see how the ground functions, which was a really good meeting that we had. We've got a couple of meetings with them coming up, but I guess until we understand some of that larger piece at work, it's really hard for us to continue with the continued investment into the ground. So in a little bit of a holding pattern on that at the moment as we get through. set myself up for a joke there, but I missed that, so we'll move on. So international cricket. So at the moment we're all about, as of 31 December, we're all about delivery. So we're just getting the ground ready to go for the summer ahead. And in the international stage, we hosted the West Indies, which was a great victory for New Zealand. Unfortunately, it only went 3 days, which does have some impacts on us financially, and also our Black and Gold, who look after our functions and catering as well. So apart from that, the game ran really smoothly. Everything behind the scenes worked really well. As Johnny mentioned in the tea break, New Zealand just played a little bit too well, which meant that it only went for 3 days. On top of that, quarter two's around getting the bid in for next summer's activity, so 26, 27. There's a couple of really big opportunities on the horizon. We're waiting to hear from those, and we should hear in the next week what we've got on the international schedule. The highlights include potentially an India test, a Sri Lankan test, and an ODI, and White Ferns ODI and T20 against Bangladesh. So they're all the games that we put a bid in for, and we should find out very shortly how we went with those. In terms of the domestic schedule, we're about halfway through, or we were halfway through. Spoiler alert: we actually won. The Blaze won the Super Smash, which was really great, and finished second in the one-day comp. Firebirds were third in the one-day comp after losing the elimination final, and all three of the one-day, both the one-day finals and the elimination final were at the Basin Reserve last month, and they were great events, and luckily the weather turned on for all 3 days. So good to have two Wellington teams in there in the 3 days, and they were delivered really well, and really happy with how that went. Training days are a little bit down this year, or as of the end of quarter two, largely just due to some of the Wellington summer that we've had. But great that we've got the indoor facility just up at Wellington College, so none of the teams are affected. If it's not that great and we can't train at the Basin, they just go up the road and train under the covers there at the Cravo, which is a great facility that we've got access to. Commercially, there's a couple of big contracts being negotiated at the moment through the naming rights of Cello, and also the catering functions and bar with Black and Gold. So they're all progressing and still progressing. The turf maintenance tender is progressing as well. So we're currently just reviewing the submissions at the moment. Unfortunately, given that's the position we're at, we don't have too much more to share on that, but up into the next meeting, we'll have an outcome which we can communicate with you in regards to that. In terms of, I guess, alternative events that we're exploring, obviously we had a bit of a discussion last time just around Beers at the Basin being cancelled last year. We've got a couple of irons in the fire, and we're hoping to secure something and communicate that soon. But again, it's a real challenge for us to try to secure those sort of events outside of cricket, which is still a real big focus for the Trust and for us as we move forward. In terms of some of those performance measures, touched on them a little bit. The ticketed events are down, just obviously with the shortening of that test match against India. The facility practice also tracking down a little bit, just with, as I said, the weather, but great to have that secondary option there. Functions are actually tracking okay, which was quite good. They were down a little bit last year. I think the key point there is just to note that a lot of those functions are around cricket delivery as well, so there's still a little bit of work we need to do to ensure we have a robust schedule of functions that caters to the wider needs of the community and not just in terms of cricket specific. In terms of the performance, the number of attendees is down largely due to the shortened test, also the Beers at the Basin and the loss of that event, so that's why that number looks quite poorly. Also, that really affects the cash subsidy as well, so that's why the cash subsidy is quite significantly increased on what was in the annual target, but we're hoping to right that as we go through the rest of the season. We did have really good numbers for Super Smash over the summer, which was really pleasing to see. I think about 7,800 came through the gates for those games, which was really good and up on the numbers we've had over the last couple of years, so we're really happy with that outcome. In terms of the financials, obviously there's a lot of numbers up there. Some of the key points for us in regards to this, all apart from the event cancellation, being that Beers at the Basin, are mainly timing differences. We managed to, Beers was 50 it's about 50K. So we kept the $5,000 deposit, but there was 45,000 that we needed to find for that. We did manage to get a couple smaller cricketing events there. The Parliament 11 played, the police or the media, I think, last weekend, which was great to see some of those members down there. But that was just an easy one we could swap for rather than having another big event that we couldn't get quite with the timing and the lead-in that we had. So we've managed to track 13K below the budget, which is we're relatively happy with given that big loss from the event. Which is good. Challenges 1 and 2 kind of go hand in hand. The escalating event delivery costs and the escalating and the increasing operational costs that we're all hearing, and you hear a little bit today in terms of how everyone else is struggling with that. In addition to that, and as I've already mentioned, the event diversification risk is something that we're very cognizant of and working towards. We do have something that we'll hopefully be able to share with you next meeting around what we've got it lined up for next year. We're also working in a really highly competitive and changing content market, particularly around cricket and the increasing competitiveness both domestically and for international fixtures. There's also, on top of that, some discussion, and I'm sure you would have seen in the papers, around the future of the T20 competitions in New Zealand as well. So Super Smash in its current format, there's also an option on the table to join the Australian competition, which the name is eluding me.
The Big Bash.
Thank you, Todd. The Big Bash. And there's also discussion around a privatised T20 competition here in New Zealand. So depending on what way that goes, that could have significant impacts for what we do at the Basin. Still don't know the outcomes of those, so don't have too much to say at this point. But one probably suits the Big Bash is probably the one that does bring significant issues, given that would mean a reduction in the Super Smash. But either of the other two options could see either the status quo or potentially a slight upturn. But we'll see what happens in that space. And then the other, as we sort of discussed earlier, we've got a couple of capital projects on the way, but securing the funding for those larger capital projects that we do have on the radar is maintaining a challenge, but that's a key strategic focus for us as we move forward into that space. 36 seconds, I can do this. Q3, so coming up, we've got the tender process and the outcomes of that. Around the turf maintenance, we'll have the decision around the international schedule for the summer. Have 2 White Ferns versus South Africa ODIs coming up in April, which we're really looking forward to. Had Kilikiti at the Basin at the end of Jan, which was another great event and really just highlights what we can do when we get those larger community events delivered at the ground. And I just found out yesterday that the Kilikiti, the Wellington Samoan Kilikiti Association is up for a New Zealand Cricket Award for a diversity and inclusion program. So on the back of Kilikiti at the Basin, they've actually started their own Kilikiti League, which they run down at Fraser Park on a Friday afternoon, which has gone really well over the last couple of years. So great to see those initiatives aren't just one-off initiatives, and they're leading to wider community outcomes as well, which we're really happy to support. And as touched on, we've already hosted, but we had the hosting of the HBJ and the Ford Trophy finals as well, and the completion of the Super Smash, which was great. So in summary, really want to thank the councillors and Wellington in general for the support. We're really happy with how the Basin ran over Q2 and particularly how we bounced back from a couple of those challenges. There's still some really large overhanging projects that will have significant impact on the ground and how it operates, and we just got to sit tight and wait to see what the outcomes of some of those are, and then obviously we'll move forward as pragmatically as we can. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Sorry, Councillor Tittenbarger.
I see in your operating expenditures you've got rates as being an increasing rates as an issue. Do you know how much you guys pay us in rates, since we give it back to you anyway?
I don't know the actual figure, but yeah, the rates are going up.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just curious how much you actually pay in rates, because obviously your operating expenditure includes that. Then we give you a grant to make sure you can pay your stuff. I'm just wondering how much we get back through rates. Just a curious question, because I'm quite surprised that we actually charge rates necessarily when we don't charge it to government, obviously, which we're trying to fight. But it's just interesting because you should be balancing that out, as I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I'll be able to find the number and I can circulate it to Jamie if you like. Yeah.
I remember it being one of the questions I had when I first sort of looked at the books and thought, oh, this is interesting, but yeah, it's just I guess what it is.
Great, thanks very much. I have a question regarding, you're constantly looking at hiring the ground out for different functions, and of course I understand that's based around cricket and other sports. But what about the pavilion? Is that an opportunity, and do you actually look at that as well to host functions in the pavilion?
Yeah, so there's a couple of key function spaces. So the Nord Room and the Trish McKelvey Lounge are available, and that's Black and Gold who do our catering. They also rent out the function spaces. There's a little bit of work we need to do just to try to secure more bookings throughout the year, but those spaces are available to be hired.
Great, thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Thanks, Todd and Blair. Great presentation and a wonderful cricket ground. Have you got any plans before the winter shutdown to get more club sport on the pitch or on the ground?
Struggled a little bit with the calendar this year, just in terms of those schedules. So as soon as those White Ferns games finish on the 4th of April, it's pretty much straight into renovation period. There's a small window, but unfortunately the window of games is sort of midweek. So we're trying to fill those with some community games at the moment. I think we've almost confirmed what that looks like. But then, yeah, we were thinking of maybe going out to clubs if there is that opportunity for one of those days, noting that it is a midweek venue, but it's certainly something we're cognizant of to try to make sure we get the balance right between international, domestic and club cricket out on the basin.
What we did do over the summer though was have junior cricket on Saturday mornings at the basin, where there was 4 to 8 games going currently, and we've also got plans to get junior football on the ground this winter. Capital Football and New Zealand Football have launched a new whole of football plan, which we want to essentially support them to deliver that at the basin with the big screen that we've got to help promote positive messaging around the game, and it's a good use of the ground when there's no cricket on.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any more questions? Thanks very much, Blair and Todd. Much appreciated. Thanks for coming in. Right. Now, would now like to look at the appointments list. Now, this is...
Item 2.1.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, item 2.1.
Yep, sorry. Item 2.1, Council Controlled Organisations, the report. We'll take this report as read. Does anyone have any questions for Jamie? No questions? Okay. Oh, sorry. Councillor, yep, sorry. Councillor Randall.
Yes, I mean, in terms of the quarterly reports, it's, 2 questions. First question is, are you happy with the consistency of how the quarterly reports are now being presented?
Yes. No, we went through quite a process, probably I think about 18 months ago, to get consistency, and that's certainly from a council officer perspective. You know, what we're seeing is what we'd expect to see.
Okay, and just in terms of activities on the CCO front between now and the next quarterly meeting, is there anything particular that you would draw elected members' attention to?
I think yes. There's one item I'd like to just make note of, and that's in terms of we recently finished our first annual call for expressions of interest for trustee and director roles across our CCO boards. And the CIO process is to help us build and maintain a pool of prospective candidates for those boards for the future vacancies when they arise. So we advertise through the Institute of Directors and then also through our Wellington City Council channels, and we got, I think it was 67 expressions of interest. So that we'll have that pool now that will sit alongside all the other channels that we use as well. So that we were very pleased with that process, and that will be an annual process going forward.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Now, we'll move on to debate. Does anyone... sorry? Oh, sorry. First of all, I'll move the motion. Sorry. Councillor Randall, would you like to second? Thank you. Would you like to speak to it?
No, I just want to say that a lot of our CCOs have been impacted by this terrible weather, as has the city, and I guess that's reflected. I also want to thank them all for the efforts to putting these reports together. I know it's quite a lot of effort, but it does give us a very good picture of how the different CCOs, and they are all different, the different CCOs are managing going forward. And I'm very pleased to see that while there are some challenges, there's no burning fires that need to be addressed straight away. So that's good news.
Great, thank you. Is there any debate?
No? Great.
No? Okay.
Go to the back.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to vote on that. Thank you. One if you agree, two if you don't.
Just turn the page.
Oh, yep. That was passed unanimously, thank you. So now we'll go to the decision register and upcoming reports. We will take this report as read. Does anyone have any questions of Anna before we move on to debate? No questions? Okay. I will move the motion. And is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Randall, thank you. Okay. No debate? No questions? Okay, thanks. No right to reply then. Thank you. We'll go and vote. And that was passed unanimously. Thank you. Declare the motion carried. Now, officers have now recommended that we we take the next section as public excluded for the following part of the proceedings. I will move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor
Compton.
Yep, Compton. Mm-hmm. Is there any debate on this? No debate? Okay. I'll now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please press 1. Those against, please press 2. Declare the motion passed. We will now take a few minutes. Yeah. Sorry. To go into to turn the live stream off and to clear the room. Thank you. Okay. Nothing else? Okay, I now declare the meeting closed. We'll close with the karakia. Thank you, Anna.
Unihia, ki te utu tapanui, ki o wātia, ki a māma, te nākau, te tēnana, te wairua, e te aratakatū. Rā e rongo, whakaireiria, ake ki runga, ki a wātia, ai rā, kua wātia.
Thank you.